Welcome everybody to the 12th episode of Mahogany Thoughts. I'm your host, Dr. Terrence Duncan, and I'm with my co-host, Terrence Butler.
What's going on, people?
What's going on?
Let's get at it.
Absolutely. We also have our host, Carmel Brown. How you doing, Miss Brown?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good. I'm doing good. Before we started the recording, we had to go ahead and get into the funnies. Carmel, I think somebody has some feedback issues going on.
Is it me?
It could be.
Let's see. It might be. Let me log off here real quick.
Do you need to hop off online?
No, I'll still be online. Did that take care of the problem?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's this laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, while you're getting situated, we're gonna go into the hee ha ha's of the week and stuff. And so we were just talking before we started recording that we was talking about just how crazy life is during the pandemic, and Butler and I we're avid sports fans. You know, we haven't even had a chance to chop it up about the draft and the trades that went on. Gordon Hayward just went to the Hornets.
Really?
Yeah, Gordon Hayward just went to the Hornets. But
Okay.
we was talking about life in the pandemic for men without sports. You know, it was kind of contentious. I mean, and not to make light of the situation, but I was actually losing my mind. I was about to jump off a bridge or something like that because it's.
I couldn't imagine if the NBA didn't get it together and baseball didn't get it together. NFL, I couldn't imagine. I might have went through every Netflix show, every Amazon Prime show possible, or either I would have became a brilliant scholar. I would have just sat back and read and scratching myself.
Got your PhD.
Well, guys, that might be a new line of service for therapy. Maybe I should add that to my practice. Men that are missing out on sports during the pandemic that are suicidal or just questioning their entire life.
That's a niche. That's definitely a niche.
Oh, that niche was well needed around March because when they took away, I knew the pandemic was serious when they shut down the Big Ten and the ACC tournaments, and that's when. And then when they talked about they canceled March Madness, I was like, it was a wrap.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a very challenging year, a very crazy year, unprecedented year. So, but we are getting through it, and we're almost to 2021.
Absolutely. It's a hell of a way to start a decade.
Absolutely. But we'll see. This is how the decade starts. It makes you wonder what the rest of the decade is going to be like.
Oh, it should be very interesting and maybe even fun. So,
I think it'll be fun. Yep, certainly.
So this week, I guess we'll just go around table discussion before we get into the actual presentation itself. I guess it looks like you have some feedback, somebody.
It shouldn't be me this time because I shut down every device except for one.
Butler, is that your feedback?
I don't have anything else on.
Let's see. I will double check.
Okay. While she's doing that, I guess we can talk about, what happened as of last week. Today is November the 21st. It's been a week since our last podcast. Let's talk about current pressing issues or situations that, that kind of stood out there that you just want to talk about, or just a funny story or whatever. I guess with me, we're still waiting on the transition to go on. The pandemic continues to rage, so I guess I'll go through my PSA announcement. Stay at home. If you have not seen the YouTube video with Samuel Jackson, Stay the F at Home, classic. Make sure you check it out. That was probably the funniest thing I saw for a week. Laughing, man. It was funny, but it's crazy. It's crazy at the point where we are now with the pandemic, and it comes to the point where I know a lot of people are fatigued. If you guys are fatigued, to be honest, I say get mad at the people who's not trying to follow the directives and the mandates. So at the end of the day, the businesses are getting mad, talking about the government setting down XYZ or your respective local authority. The reality is that they put these thresholds and these lines, and they said that if you cross these lines, certain things are going to happen for some areas, and then some places. I know we're in the St. Louis area, out in rural metro St. Louis. You're seeing a lot of places that finally just said, "Hey, put on a mask." So it's just be safe. Thanksgiving coming up. I know that some people are going to have some family over. Just use common sense. I'm in the healthcare field, and it's just two words, and I'll say it over and over again. It's called universal precautions. What the CDC is telling everybody is basic guidelines: wash your hands, use appropriate personal protective equipment, and if you're not feeling well, do not be out and about. It's basic universal precautions. They said these universal precautions will mitigate 97% of communicable diseases such as coronavirus. So it's funny now where it's something that I've been doing for quite some time, and I know other in the healthcare field has done as well. When you're out and about now, you just got to take your work precautions out to real life. So that's just the way I go about doing it. And for those who are sick, and definitely say my prayers, and hopefully that you guys have a speedy recovery. And for those who are not sick as of yet, please don't get sick. Butler. Hey, Butler, you froze on me. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You kind of going in and out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your signal's kind of choppy. We've been having issues with I don't know. I guess it might be widespread, because we're all in different parts of the area. So I know I've been having internet connectivity issues, and it sounds like you might have it.
That might be my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
I can hear
you.
Yeah. Yeah, I got
I heard you
disconnected
talking
there for
about
a
the
second.
pandemic and whatnot.
Hmm.
Yeah, I got disconnected there for a sec, so I'm back on.
Yeah, I think it might be something with the connectivity with the area. So no, I was just talking about the pandemic and just talking basically like cases are going up, but in reality, the other thing to add to that too is that it doesn't matter if the cases are going up and down. If you use common sense and just do what you're supposed to do, then you're going to be fine more often than not. So I don't need the government to tell me that cases are going up 70% or 80%. If you're doing the same thing in September as you did in May, it's the same thing you did in November and December, you're more likely going to protect yourself from being sick. So it's just kind of like my 2 cents on the matter. So Butler, last week commentary, anything that you want to add to the discussion? Okay, we'll switch to Carmel. It seems like he still has a connection issues. Carmel, anything that you learned that was interesting you want to share for the week?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. All right, go ahead, Butler. Anything interesting that you've learned for the week?
I asked a question because I got knocked off and just came back on.
Sure.
Oh, the question was, I guess last week, lessons learned, and the past week, anything funny story you want to share, or just something you want to comment on that might be national, regional, or just a free thought in general? He's looking at me, so we're gonna have to chip in and get him better Wi-Fi. Carmel?
Okay. Yeah,
I hear the voices going in and out. I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, I think his voice is going in and out. I can hear yours on a consistent basis, Dr. Duncan.
Yeah, it might be your Wi-Fi, bro.
Test
Yeah.
1 2 1 2.
Well, yeah, I can't think of anything off the
I think
top of my head.
I'm in the same spot I always am. So I guess we need to call Spectrum and whatnot. I don't know what the issue is.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll manage it. We're doing it live, so I mean, it is what it is. So I mean,
The only thing that I can.
I'm gonna try to go out and come back in.
Yeah, try that. That might work out.
Okay. While he's doing that, we'll just go ahead and Carmel, do you have any stories that you want to share or interesting perspectives?
Well, the only thing that I think I'd like to comment about from this past week is the governor of Illinois. Of course, I live in Illinois. Announcing that we're going back on a shutdown. And so, that requires one of my businesses to shut down to a different level than which we've been operating. So our fitness center, we're not allowed to have group fitness classes currently. So that's a huge change. And, kind of a bummer for the people that enjoy coming. I have a group of ladies that come at 5:30 a.m. faithfully in the morning. And so just having to go from that to virtual has been a little, I guess, concerning.
Absolutely, absolutely. Butler, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I think we got a somewhat of a good stretch of good internet. So hopefully we keep riding the wave.
Okay, so we're gonna get you in real quick before that wave gets disrupted. Anything you learned in the last week, bro, you want to share?
I think I learned in the last week.
Funny stories, hee hee ha ha's, or
Uh, I think I just want to have uh, confidence and resiliency like Donald Trump. I look at him and I'm like, I want to have that kind of dog and fight in my life, to where no matter what nobody's telling me, I'm just not gonna quit. I'm not gonna die. This dude is like Freddy Krueger times Jason. He just keep coming back.
he kind of reminds me that, I play video games a lot during the pandemic, especially because I'll be bored half the time. But he's kind of like this final boss and stuff, man. Like no matter how many times you try to cut his arms off or whatever and stuff, he just keeps
Right,
going
just
back
growing
stronger,
up.
stronger. And you just like, when is this cat gonna go away? But, hey, he's definitely a character. I always found him as an interesting character from day one, even before he became the president and stuff. And it's just,
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and really just, not only that, but just his little flunkies that be on TV. I
Yeah.
mean, they keep a straight face while they be telling this stuff. I mean, I'm like you, Butler. I need that type of confidence in life where I can lie so confidently that I still start believing in myself. Every day I wake up, it's like I won the election.
They say if you hear something long enough, you'll start to believe it.
I hear you.
And
Well, I
I
think we
was
should put that
watching.
on a T-shirt. Trump, confidence like Trump.
Yeah. I mean, you could make a T-shirt out of that and stuff. I
We
mean,
could, but we'll get so eviscerated for it.
Yeah.
You know what? But it's you know what? But it's like 70 million people that might buy that T-shirt. So I live with that.
That is true. Very true.
he did.
I got like a $70+ million audience.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, and we call him Teflon Don because, Teflon bounces back from anything. It's like, you can't destroy it.
No, you really can't. I mean, it's like, so I haven't, so I'm back to watching Sopranos again.
Mm.
And actually, so I told somebody I was watching Sopranos and it's like, hey, you ever seen The Sopranos? It's like, you have to remember The Sopranos came out before Netflix and Fire TVs and whatnot. So it's kind of like The Wire. I walked in like in the middle of the entire show. So I never saw the beginning, but it kind of reminded me of like a character of The Sopranos and stuff. I mean, he's just like, no matter what, Tony Soprano, he's like Tony Soprano and stuff. It's like, hey, he believes whatever reality that he wants to and stuff. And it's, I mean, out of all the gangster movies and stuff that we watch as kids or even as adults and stuff, I mean, you just know, it's unbelievable some of the stuff that happens. Like, man, this is only on TV or movies, but hey, I mean, he's entertainment, all things considering. Even though he's screwing the country up, but he's definitely entertaining.
Oh, this has definitely been the most entertaining 4 years politically ever. It's like it's literally been like a reality show.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and let's just be honest. It's been working for him. To some degree, it has been.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the following that he has, and he had record numbers for an election for a Republican candidate. I mean, he's brought people out of the woodworks that hadn't probably ever voted. So I mean, he has done something that's somewhat remarkable, and whether we agree with his politics or not, he certainly has a way of bringing people forward.
I need to know that stuff because if I can get people to donate for my legal campaign or my legal issues and everything else and stuff, I mean, I'll be one of the richest cats on the planet.
He's definitely a master marketer.
Yeah.
That's no doubt. He's a master at marketing.
And a stone cold idiot to boot. So, but I mean, hey, it's like I said, they like it, I love it. So
exactly.
And I'll even say this: if he had got that vaccine maybe like 2 months earlier before this election, he might have won it.
He may have. He may have.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. He was just at the point where he just ran his mouth so much and stuff. It was just so destructive and stuff. And really, All he had to do was be like Toronto when they played Golden State in Game 6 and just run the clock out and just play solid defense and take play safe offense. But he just kept running his mouth and stuff like that. But you're actually right. I mean, if he would have had the vaccine, yeah, it would have been a game changer. So
Sure.
Dude, it
Yeah.
would have been sick.
yeah, he's still an idiot though.
I couldn't say for 1 years of that cat.
Oh,
Anyway.
I couldn't either. I couldn't either and stuff. I know I'd have been calling my sister-in-law, who's actually listed on a podcast, and I would have called Glamour Travels free pub. And so get me the hell out of here for a minute. So shout out to my sister-in-law, Tammy. Hey, sis. I know she's laughing right now. I know she's on mute, but I know she probably laughed at that. So Carmel Brown, she's a counselor, and she's actually was on one of our original first set of episodes. We actually did a mental health panel discussion. It's glad to have you back on. I'm very impressed by the Queen Beyonce chair setup that you got going on. I mean, it's pretty dope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Queen
dope.
Carmel.
Yeah.
Exactly. I like things that are comfortable and elegant. I like a little class.
You ain't lying stuff because that chair has a lot of class.
All you missing is a scepter.
You might be onto something there.
Next podcast, you'll have a scepter.
Yep.
Kiss
Very possible.
Kiss the ring. Nah, that's dope. That's dope. Yeah, so Carmel Brown is, like I said, she's actually one of our panelists, and she actually released a book, our second book, I believe, and we're going to talk about that later. And we're going to actually go over to presentation time. So for those who are still getting hip to the podcast, what's Mahogany Thoughts? Mahogany Thoughts basically is a podcast that's aimed and discussing issue in 5 key areas, which would be employment, financial, healthcare, social change, and that just drew a blank, and that sucked. I did it on my own show. Education. So we cover education, employment, healthcare, financial independence, and social change. Mental health is a subsegment into the healthcare domain, and I know we've spent a lot of time in healthcare, but for those who have been listening faithfully to the show, thank you. Reason why we're talking about mental health and healthcare so much is because there's a lot of healthcare disparities in the Black community, and it needs to be a conversation. The podcast also gives people an opportunity from the community to present to the audience not only what they do, but just talk about their journey, their path, and we get into a rolling discussion based on whatever the design topic is. And just, reason why we do that is that we want to give people an opportunity to see that, people like Carmel, Butler, myself, you might see us in the stores and things like that, but you don't really know what they do or their story. And a lot of people, they look at Dr. Duncan, or they look at Terrence Butler and his business, or Carmel with her business. We all have unique stories to share. And I think that it's time for us to provide those stories. The other aim and goal for the podcast is to have a platform that we are able to control for the people. So you don't have too many stations or media related outlets, nice dog, media related outlets that really gives us the opportunity to air our voices. And so this is a nice substitute to do that. And we thank you for it. And if you are listening, if you're interested in learning more about the podcast or listen or see previous episodes, you can go into Spotify and search Mahogany Thoughts under podcast. It's actually YouTube channels, every video recording. You're able to see that on the YouTube channel under Dr. Terrence Duncan. And it's also on my website, www.drtduncan.com. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us on the podcast. And we're going to go into the presentation real quick. And just before we bring in our featured guest. And I forgot to hit the share screen. Sharing screen now. Voila. Presentation time. So for those who are jumping on for the first time, we do these slides. We've been doing it for the last several episodes, and the intent of doing these presentations is just to kind of give a brief background into the speaker's career field, and before introducing the speaker, and then just kind of bringing out the facts. We try to stay on fact as much as possible based on the research as well as common knowledge. We try to refrain from a lot of opinions because opinions can spread misinformation. So, all of our guests that were on there, we try to get experts in the field. And then I do try to do some research just to try to get a better understanding. And I share that research with you guys. We're going to talk about mental health in Black America. Now, we did do the podcast earlier about mental health with, I believe, like 6 mental health specialists. And just actually, this came from the panel discussions that we had for a 2-week stretch. Depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem are reported 2 to 3 times higher for adults over 18. Blacks are less likely to utilize mental health therapy due to lack of access, faith-based beliefs, and perceived stigmas among others in the community. And Blacks are 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems. Now, the first slide that was actually prior to COVID. Now, this is some of the information that's going on that's either related to COVID from the Office of Minority Health, as well as additional research that's happening during this stretch of the pandemic. But some of the issues with Black mental health and COVID include the distress and fear of infection due to occupation type, disproportionate infections, and death related to COVID-19, relative isolation and diminished social networks based on stay-at-home orders, such as Butler and myself, losing our mind for a couple of months without having sports. That's a great example. Access to healthcare disparities resulting in delayed treatment and diagnosis. Some of the other concerns that have been documented and researched by experts in the field based on the facts includes educational attainment disparities, such as access to internet, removal from in-person settings, or increased risk of exposure due to lack of childcare options. There's an increased conflict in interpersonal relationships. So we're having a lot more conflict, more misunderstandings, miscommunication. People are pretty much on edge, whether they know it or not. Some psychiatrists call it pandemic brain, but it does affect your friends, your social status, your dating status, and your marital status. So, you might have an increase in disagreements and some festering feelings and whatnot. And a lot of it may not necessarily be the issue itself, because under normal times you have other ways of releasing that stress. But during the pandemic, you have a lot of idle time, and idle times bring some crazy thoughts. So some of those conflicts that you have are magnified by tenfold in some situations, and it has ended some relationships and friendships with others. So I'm not the most perfect person in the world, so I guess my public apology if I ever come off as an ass. My bad. It's not personal. It's pandemic, I guess. Increase of violence and domestic abuse and conflict. That's actually happened more so in the Black community. And that came from the research from medical physicians as well as psych experts in the field. And for those young Black men and Black women who are looking for a career field or just wants to know a little bit more about how to be a counselor or specialist, or for those who are older adults and they're looking for a career change, we always try to outline, based on whoever our speaker is, the general 30,000-foot view of how to get to where they got to their particular point in life. The education required includes to be a counselor and a specialist. The education required includes a bachelor's in behavioral, social science, or psychology field. For your graduate program or your master's program, it's some form of mental health counseling. There's different specialties, so I just went broader instead of just being more specific. So if you do want to do something more specific, it's definitely encouraged to do your research. Other requirements, during your graduate studies, you will have a clinical internship. After your graduation, and once you become more active as a specialist, you'll actually have to receive professional development or continuing education. There's so many credit hours that are professional development units that you have to get in a particular period of time. Again, that depends on the specialty, as well as opportunities to obtain certification in certain mental health programming. So it could be as far as addiction counseling, it could be in clinical case management, it could be dealing with play therapy, etc. So it just definitely depends on what avenue that you want to go to. The estimated investment. So we're going to get away from that conversation of student loans, and I'm going to say it every time. Not everybody has to go to get their doctorate, not everybody has to get their master's, but student loans are available. And, you know, you got to think of it like this. We're all business people, regardless of the level of education you have, whether you work for somebody else or if you have your own business. You are your own business person. So one thing to keep in mind is that you should look at your student loan as an investment to get you to the next stage. And so this investment required to become a counselor on average is $54,220, which includes $36,880 for your undergrad and $17,340 for your graduate degree. The rate of return on your investment, meaning how much money extra are you getting for this particular investment into the activity that you're accomplishing, is 8%. So that means that you are earning 8% more had you not done XYZ year over year over year, and it adds up. And then that's how you come with your rate of return on investment. There are multiple paths towards financial independence. Some of it includes that you can work in a variety of healthcare systems, government agencies, or private practice. The median salary, and again, this is just a cumulative average of salaries for all that's in this particular category, is $45,570, and that is for some occupations. Therapists, on average, bring in $85,340. What does this mean? Why the disparity between the two? Because most of the median salary, that's when you are employed, mostly with state agencies or maybe with certain healthcare clinics or nursing homes or other healthcare providers. Therapists, most of them, either if they're working for a larger corporation, they can be performance coaches, they can have their own office, or they can work in a system, and they will probably make more money, you know, through those means and stuff. So that's why you have the two different pay disparities. And before we bring in our next guest, Ms. Carmel Brown, she is a licensed clinical practice clinician, and she's been there since 2015. She has a BA in criminal justice from the SIU Carbondale, and she has an MA in professional counseling. Ms. Brown is very versatile in her business ideas, as she is a certified personal trainer. She's a certified fitness and nutritional specialist, and she's a co-owner at Club Exhilarating Fitness and Wellness, which is in Belleville, Illinois. And also, like I said, she wrote her second and published her second book, Your Exhilarating Life, Creative Prosperity in Family and Career. I do have a copy of the book. I just have yet to read it. So I just wanted to say that, you know, for the record. And without further ado, Carmel, formal welcome to the show.
I had to get me a copy as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, definitely have to get a copy. Great. It's a great book. I'm very proud of it. Can you guys see me okay?
No, I see a bright yellow light.
Okay.
While she's getting her,
hold on real quick. Before she actually gets into her presentation, I was looking at your private quick comment about it.
Yeah,
I was looking at your presentation, and I had like kind of a flashback. When I was in college, I actually wanted to major in psychology.
Oh, word?
And I did. And I went and talked to I talked to a counselor, and I talked to several other people, and all of them talked me out of it. They said, wow, you never make money being a psychologist. I don't know if they looked at me being a Black and didn't think it was a marketable field, but I promise at least 2 to 3 people talked me out of pursuing a psychology degree.
Wow.
And so, which I think now, I always think back to that. And the funniest thing is, so my second choice, I wanted to be a dentist. Second choice, I had a cousin who was a dentist, and she said I can just take her practice over. And so I went and started the pre-dentistry program. And I got maybe about to my junior year, and I found out that I cannot graduate with a pre-dentistry degree. And so the closest degree that I could finish with the class that I currently take on all the science and whatnot was a zoology degree. So I actually have I went from starting to be a psychologist, ended up graduating with a BS in zoology. And my wife always teases me about that. And you say, you know what, I'm going to put that on my bio now. I'm going to call myself a zoologist because I earned it.
So I
earned it. I'm a zoologist.
You got me choking and stuff on my snacks. So what does a zoologist do?
I don't even know. I don't. I'm assuming they work at the zoo. I'm assuming they work at the zoo. But the classes they had me taking, I was taking like chemistry. I was taking hematology. They had me going out into the forest in the summer, looking at trees and plants. I had to dissect animals. I was miserable my whole scholastic college career, all because somebody taught me I'm not getting a psychology degree. That's my dissertation.
That's unfortunate because there are many, most psychologists that I know or that I've met, and most therapists in private practice make six figures. So that is unfortunate that someone talked you out of that.
That's actually, the thing about it, that's really not uncommon and stuff, because I can tell you many a times and stuff when people told me I couldn't have done this, I couldn't have done that, or, there's no money to be made. And, that kind of goes next season when we start talking more on education, we're going to try to bring some specialists on there and stuff, but we want to know, like, why are we being dissuaded? Oh, I kind of know why, but, on a larger scale and stuff, like, why are we being dissuaded from pursuing higher earning incomes through certain career fields, so, when I got my management degree, I got a BS in management. And, we all fall into this belief that, okay, I get this degree, where's the money? And it doesn't work that way and stuff. And, in your profession, Carmel, at least that they have a clinical internships and whatnot and stuff. But, as far as business internships and things like that, there's not a lot of people that was telling us about what's going to be doing internships. So, I mean, it's really interesting and stuff, and it's actually in my book that I have not worked on a while, but, I paused, but I have wrote on that particular piece. It's really interesting and stuff, like, we're led to go to these fields, and it actually brings revenue in these departments. But, those who are the department chairs and some of the instructors, they're not really vested into making sure that young Black and brown students are actually getting into the field. So it's really interesting, and it's really a byproduct of why we have a lot of, collective mental health issues in the community and stuff, because we're going to go to whoever we feel comfortable to see. And, people like yourself, Carmel, you guys are a dime a dozen. So, when we did the first podcast, one of the biggest questions or comments that I was getting from people who saw it was, they didn't know that there was that many Black therapists that was in the area. And even for you guys, if you recall correctly, you guys didn't even know each other. We had 6 therapists in the St. Louis area who really didn't know each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, I knew one person, and that was it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And 17 years ago, whenever I finished my graduate degree, and 15 years ago when I finished my clinical license, I never thought that the mental health field or being a therapist would be as important years later as it is today, especially for the Black community. And in fact, I recall back then I was in my 20s whenever I finished all of that, and going to trainings and professional development opportunities. There weren't very many people of color in those trainings. Now, today, I am seeing more people of color than ever before in the mental health field and becoming licensed clinicians. So I'm very pleased with that. Not to mention, there's been a huge influx of African Americans seeking out therapy. The number of new African American clients that have come into my practice for services over the past year or two have been it's been great to see.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it's, on a side note, after that panel discussion that we had, it's really interesting because we were originally communicating through instant messenger, and it's really nice to see when I had took my little sabbatical off of social media, just to see the level of communication that that you guys were having amongst each other. And I know that Cecilia Carter Sorwar, who's hopefully watching the show. It's nice that you guys have created a bond, and I know Tessie's out there doing his thing and stuff. So, I mean, it's really nice to, start connecting people to each other and be able to share ideas and stuff, because, I mean, the reality is, that's what happens in the field professionally. We have to, and we'll talk about that at some point, know how to better network. Like we have these businesses, we have these ideas, but we have a very disjointed network. We may make a referral, but we don't have a conversation. And, again, I say it, digital Black Wall Street. You know, we don't have to say in the same neighborhood or anything like that, but it would be nice to say, okay, I do have a mental health professional in tow that you can speak to. Now I know six. You know, we have a wealth financial advisor that we had last week. You know, just a variety of people that we're bringing on board. I think it's really awesome just to kind of rebuild this community from a virtual basis and give people an opportunity to get connected to those resources. So anyways, without further ado, Carmel, thank you again for joining the show. And I guess the first question that we could probably address is from the mental health panel discussion to now, how has business been going for you on the therapist side?
Whew, well, on the therapist side, the business has been more busy than ever. I've been a licensed clinician, like I said, for a decade and a half. I've been in private practice for the past 5 or 6 years, and this has been the busiest year ever. I was really pleased with growth in my practice over the previous 2 years and the numbers coming in, but this year has been something completely different. Just trying to keep up with paperwork and assessments and treatment planning has been definitely a challenge, but we're working harder than ever in our field right now. And that's a great thing because it's great for the therapist and it's great for the community that people are actually seeking help and people are getting better. People are acquiring healthier coping skills and they're learning how to verbalize their thoughts and feelings about everything that's been going on with the politics, with the pandemic, with the civil unrest and everything else that's been going on. People have been emotionally overwhelmed and they are seeking out help in record numbers.
So what do you think are the biggest challenges that you've seen, you know, and I know that through HIPAA you can only say so much, but what do you think some of the biggest challenges have you seen related to the pandemic and I guess just Black lives in general over these last several months?
Sure. Well, there's been a lot of anxiety about what is to come, what is not foreseen, the things that we, don't know, we can't predict. That has been major. I have seen more anxiety this year than ever. Not to mention everything that's going on now has triggered some previous and past experiences and or trauma for a lot of individuals and families overall. And they're kind of reverting back to some things that they have gone through in the past that have caused emotional distress. So just people being able to not being able to predict what might come moving forward, and knowing that they've been through trauma before, and so now everyone's senses are heightened in regards to what may come moving forward.
That's interesting that you talked about heightened anxiety, and I guess it kind of depends on perspective, I guess, or whatever and stuff, because I think that I probably had higher anxiety at the beginning of the pandemic. Near the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the pandemic, I was just kind of like, yeah, cabin fever. But right
Mm-hmm.
now, I don't really believe I have any anxiety. And I know I had different issues going on at the time. You know, like my biggest concern was trying to get back on my feet after losing a job from a really nice paying job from the industry. So my
Mm-hmm.
focus was more on that. Now, I think the only stress or anxiety I may have had was, right around June when the severance and unemployment ran out,
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out, as a Black man that actually has 3 degrees, teaches, published, and all this other stuff, would I have to go back to corporate America and take a job that's going to probably pay about $20,000 less than what I
Sure.
was making? And that was actually an acceptable break even limit, for
Mm-hmm.
myself, and it was something that was really hard for me to kind of digest. And it was just very blessed and fortunate to make some alterations and changes to get myself back on my feet, which is why I came back on board. But it's just really interesting, learning about the anxiety part. Um, especially when you were saying like how the pandemic has heightened it. So are you saying that it's almost like a pre-existing condition, underlying conditions that's going on, and anxiety along with the pandemic is triggering that?
For a lot of people, yes. Of course, there are some people who may never have experienced anything traumatic, well, for the most part. But for a lot of people who have, it certainly is triggering that fear and that worry and panic that they've experienced before.
Yeah, and not to diminish it, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm diminishing it, because, like I said, different people have different circumstances. So I know that for
Hmm.
myself, some of the community work that I've done for my, in the East St. Louis area included a food drive. And I'm still working on this project that had our guest, Nicole Nelson, that was on there earlier. So, I am acutely aware of it, but I just never even thought about, anxiety like that, which could cause, some of the conflicts or even some of the miscommunication. Is that what you're kind of thinking that's going on with those type of situations? Maybe the processing of
Absolutely.
information.
Oh, certainly, certainly. Everybody processes information different, and everybody's life experiences are different. Our life experiences have a lot to do with how we process things.
Interesting. Butler?
Oh, good. Speaking on anxiety, I think uh, like this period we're in during the pandemic, I think anxiety can hit people in so many different ways. You can be scared to leave the house because you're scared to catch the virus. You could be scared financially if you don't think they're going to shut down things and the money you once made wasn't going to keep coming in. So there is so much, I guess, of the unknown. Like, for example, like even with the young people, like I've noticed my oldest daughter, because whether she's going to have a basketball season that's kind of been up in the air and whatnot. And so she kind of had a breakdown today because she wanted to play with on this AAU volleyball team. And we were like, well, we don't know how that's going to work with basketball season possibly coming up. And she was just like, well, we probably don't have a best. She like always want to give up even having a season. She started kind of got emotional and whatnot. And it's just, that was kind of hard to watch. And I was just trying to kind of tell her, you're probably experiencing your first adult situation where mom and daddy can't help you. You have to learn to mentally adjust to what's ever going on in society. You might be let down, you might be frustrated. So if you need to process that, please talk to us. Don't hold it all in and whatnot. So I'll take this back to Carmel. I would say, do you treat people who are younger, as far as I guess the questions you might ask them or the service you might provide, younger for teenagers versus adults, or is the process pretty much the same?
The process is pretty much the same, but the delivery is sometimes different depending on the age, because sometimes they don't quite understand when you start using clinical terms in that. So sometimes we use games and we use different tools and sometimes art to get them to process and understand and verbalize what they might be experiencing.
Gotcha. Another question. We just had the infamous verses with Jeezy and Gucci. You know, one of Jeezy's favorite lines, "I'm your favorite rapper's favorite rapper." So, Ms. Brown, who is a therapist? Like, who do you go to when you might be going through like a mental situation? Do you just internally, because you know what to ask, kind of analyze yourself, or do you actually have a therapist also?
You know, I have never personally seen a therapist, but I strongly believe that if I ever get to a point where I need to, I certainly will. I have even offered to connect my own children with therapists outside of myself before, whenever I've noticed they were struggling with just regular, teenage stuff, just in case they didn't feel comfortable talking to me. Because, sometimes you just don't want to talk to your parents. And now neither one of them have taken me up on it, but I have consistently offered it. I'm pretty sure it annoys them that I offer that quite often. It's like, do you need to see someone? I have plenty of people on speed dial here. I can get you set up right now with an appointment. This is something that you don't have to talk to me about. If I see that they're closed off to me and not wanting to talk to me about certain things, I don't pressure them. I don't push them to do it. I encourage it. But if they're resistant to it, I'm always right there like, hey, I might not be the person, but I can get you connected with a confidential source. But yes, I know plenty of therapists who do see therapists. I actually have worked with therapists in therapy myself as clients. And I strongly encourage individuals who are helpers to seek therapy when needed. Because here's the thing, if we are going to help other people manage their symptoms, manage their relationships, manage their daily stressors and their lives overall, we have to be healthy and we have to do the same things that we're encouraging them to do. It simply isn't fair for us to encourage them to do things that we haven't done ourselves.
Absolutely.
A couple of questions, I guess, topics to touch upon since it's pandemic related before we get into your book. I guess the children in the pandemic, what is, for the audience, you're looking at children who are going through something that we as adults have never been through before. And so I guess it's almost like a multi-pronged question. You have children who, we talked about this on the phone last night, Carmel, you and I, about,
Mm-hmm.
Situations where, some of these kids' Chromebooks are being sold, they're being pawned or stolen.
Yeah.
You're
Mm-hmm.
having, children who rely to go to school to eat, to
Mm-hmm.
get their meals. They're not able to get that. Or you're even having situations and stuff for, as adults, you have, the parents, they're losing their jobs at a historic rate. And, it broke my heart watching the news the other day, seeing that it said over 600,000 tons of food were given away to the people of Texas. And those lines
Sure.
stretched off the interstate to wherever the designated spot is. So you're going through so many different stressors, as parents and for children. I mean, how do you, recommend managing, the confluence of issues and concerns that you have going through this very unprecedented set of times?
Well, it varies because every child, every family, every community and neighborhood are facing different challenges with their youth. Some of the circumstances that you just described are more so applying to the inner city children or the children that may not necessarily be in a higher income bracket, that type of thing, and they're relying on school for things such as meals, and it's detrimental to their overall sense of survival. And a lot of them are, like I said earlier, just a lot more anxious than usual. A lot of them are acting out behaviorally, and because they don't feel safe. They don't feel like, when you don't feel like your basic needs are being met or they're at risk of not being met, that is a crisis. And so a lot of them are displaying behaviors that are more aggressive than usual. And then we also have the youth that are in maybe more so higher income bracket families, may not necessarily rely on school for meals and support, but they are not connected to their peers. They are used to having social interaction. They're used to being in band. They're used to playing organized sports. They're used to being in on the swim team or whatever activities they tend to be involved in. And so being disconnected from that has caused a lot of depression for a lot of youth.
Yeah, it is interesting stuff because I know some kids are really, some kids are very much flourishing with
Mm-hmm.
online situations. I know my youngest, he's actually like, prefers it in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
because he said
Yeah.
he doesn't like being around people like that, except for when he's doing his activities. But he actually likes the online setup,
Mm. Right.
and when they shut down the school again, I know that he was kind of like indifferent about it, but I know some other
Mm-hmm.
schools or other, talking to other parents, their kids, they don't like that, like they wanted
Mm.
to make sure they stayed in school and whatnot. I mean, we understand the safety implications, but I thought that was very interesting. The
Yeah.
next question I wanted to ask you included grief in the pandemic. Myself personally, I know I lost 5 people confirmed related to COVID. I
Mm-hmm.
probably have a couple more that may have, um, been speculated that it could have been COVID. I mean, it doesn't matter once
Mm-hmm.
they're gone, they're gone. But the funerals. I've been to several funerals this year, and it's just very different. Very different. Dealing with that. Black people are very touchy feely. For the most
Mm-hmm.
part. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just really weird not to be able to have, contact like that. You have a capacity limit on on the actual funerals itself, as well as some repasses are not even happening. So some old traditional norms are being taken away. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess one question is, have you spoken to a lot of patients about dealing with grief like that, and what kind of recommendations would you have for the general audience, general recommendations for those who may have lost a loved one, or you might have a loved one that might be just clinging on for dear life right now, related to the pandemic or any other illness going on during these difficult times?
Sure, sure. Yes, I have worked with actually quite a few clients who have lost grandparents and aunts, uncles, siblings, cousins, that from the pandemic, and it's unfortunate because they aren't able to grieve like they typically would be able to. And mostly, I have been recommending that they continue therapy on an ongoing basis, but to seek a support system to the extent possible. Of course, that's limited right now due to the pandemic and lack of contact and availability and all that. But it's. I think we're going to see some long term impact from the grief process during this pandemic down the road because they're not. I always say this: funerals are for the loved ones. It's not for the deceased person. They're gone.
Sure.
It's for people to gain that sense of finality and to say their last goodbyes and for them to be able to connect with other loved ones and grieve together and to have that sense of support during that grief process. And so they're not quite getting that to the extent that they typically would. And so I think it's going to drag out the grief process a lot longer than usual for a lot of people. And there's just going to be a lot of unresolved grief. And so I strongly encourage individuals who find that maybe there are some changes in their behavior, they're not sleeping well, maybe there's been some changes in their eating habits, or maybe they're isolating themselves more than usual to seek out professional help because it may be some of that lingering or residual grief that they're experiencing that's unresolved.
Butler, do you have any questions on this subject?
As far as grief goes, I think I think another issue I would say I guess I'll only look at this from a personal issue. It's just especially with the existence of social media, you truly get to see how much people are hurting, how much people are struggling with this. I see constant requests for prayer for a loved one here, sickness there, and you kind of even though you might not be going through it yourself, it's hard not to internalize that. And it's just like I'm just like, man, so many people are going through so much, and it's that part of it is an issue. Obviously, for me personally, it's just like, of course, you feel for them, you pray for them, but it's like this is really affecting people in a really huge way, and it's like our world will never be the same again. Even after this vaccine, whenever it comes, people take it, decide not to take it or whatever, and we get back to some form of normalcy. People's lives will never ever be the same again. It's like we're gonna remember this year. We're gonna talk about this until we leave this earth. It's just amazing seeing how much this virus has affected people emotionally, financially, physically, everything, mentally. It's just crazy to me.
Sure.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and I think that you really hit it on the head and stuff. That I know Butler and I, we hang out a lot, we talk a lot, chat a lot outside the podcast, and it's one of the things that we both kind of agree and stuff. The life that we knew yesterday is gone. It's not coming back for the most part. All this fights for trying to keep restaurants open and things like that. I mean, that was a lifestyle predicated on, there was a restaurant or a fast food joint almost every other block. And really it's excess in a lot of ways. But I mean, I'm not knocking nobody trying to make their money, but the reality is the stuff that, those things they're probably never going to come back. I mean, I read an article the other day. I don't know if it was in the Forbes magazine or Entrepreneur magazine that talked about how, office spaces are going to be more co-working spaces, like you'll be interested to see what happens in a lot of these convention cities like Nashville or St. Louis or Indianapolis. When you're having more virtual, more people may say, hey, it's more cost effective to do virtual instead of going to conventions. So, I mean, our economy is going to be so redefined, and And even our emphasis on saving and just, worrying about tomorrow, our futures. Like I said the other day, talked about having a will and having, never really thought about death like that until the pandemic. And now I have my affairs in order, but it's, the world it's not coming back. I mean, if it does, I mean, that'll be great, but there's just a lot of things, those football stadiums probably are not going to be about 70, 80,000 full. Jerry's World is not going to be 100,000 folks in there probably for another 3 to 4 years. um, it's really interesting, and I think that for myself personally, and I know I've had some issues, emotional issues, from time to time throughout my life. I know there was I had to keep telling myself that it's okay for these changes to occur, and just to go ahead and embrace it instead of trying to fight upstream. And it's really kind of, I guess, it kind of helped me be centered and just really take one day at a time. So it's really interesting. It's kind of sad in a lot of ways, but I know some people don't do well with change. And so that's
Mhm.
why, just having a conversation like this is really necessary. Um,
Yeah.
Coping strategies. I had a note here to ask you about coping strategies, and then we're going to go into your book. But, what kind of
Sure.
general coping strategies? Now, this actually could come, like I said earlier, everybody, she actually is a certified trainer and a nutritionist. So, again, we're bringing people on board who actually are experts in their particular genre. And so, what kind of coping strategies would you recommend for people to do, especially during these winter months and stuff? Because, there's going to be some folks who are not going to be able to do a Thanksgiving. There's going to be some people who are not going to do a Christmas. My son is in the Air Force. He's going to be out there in Pensacola and in December, and I don't even know how I'm going to, how the family's going to get out there, if we're going to make it out there anytime soon. So I guess, for those type of situations, what do you think are good coping strategies for, families, or just individuals, or even things that you can do with your children over these next couple of months as people hunker down, as the cases continue to increase?
Sure. Well, what coping strategies might work for you might not necessarily work for one person. So it's different for everyone.
Okay.
But a few that have proven to be effective for many people are, of course, I'm going to say exercise. And that's a challenge right now because a lot of people can't get into the gyms and work out the way they want to throughout this pandemic. Gyms have been open, they've been closed, and it's kind of been a roller coaster with that. So being able to access your daily routine or regular routine with fitness has been a challenge. However, there are things you can do at home, taking family walks. That's certainly one thing. Going outside and everyone playing basketball on the basketball hoop, or going on hikes, going out into nature and going on hikes where there's not a lot of people is something that's another option. And jumping rope, things like that. We have weights and all types of fitness equipment in our basement. So maybe creating a space in your home where you and your family can exercise. And then the other thing is game nights. There's digital games, there's online games, there's board games. So that's certainly something that's kind of a grounding activity because when you're playing a game, it forces you to focus on the specifics and activities of the game. So it's very difficult to think about some of the things that might be stressing you out, some of your regular stressors, or having negative thoughts that may be promoting anxiety or perpetuating depression. So being able to focus on something that requires you to be mindful of what's going on in that process. Also, journaling is something that's very effective, very proven to be effective. And gratitude journaling is one that I typically recommend because a lot of people think that you have to be happy in order to feel or express gratitude, and it's the exact opposite. It's proven that individuals who tend to engage in gratitude and express gratitude tend to be happier. So there are gratitude journals that you can buy. I've bought several on Amazon. They're very reasonably priced, but it kind of keeps you in a positive state of mind and a positive mindset in regards to your thoughts. And then just making sure that you have a support system is another good coping strategy. And not just having a good support system, but accessing that support system and interacting with them. A lot of people are isolating themselves right now. I'll tell you what, this time has been actually a dream come true for some of my isolators, my habitual isolators that I see in therapy. Some of my clients who may have a history of severe and chronic symptoms of anxiety, social anxiety, and not necessarily like to be around other people. For them to be forced to stay at home and away from people has been great. But what I'm seeing is they're getting depressed more so than usual due to that
Isolators are?
extreme and I'm sorry?
The isolators are becoming more depressed?
Yes, absolutely, because they're not having that human connection. And that human interaction and connection is certainly important. And that sense of belonging is important for humans altogether. So people who were isolating themselves habitually before the pandemic and maybe had a little mild depression, that depression has certainly worsened for many of them at this point due to that lack of human connection. And they don't have that sense of belonging. And something I wanted to just rewind real quick with the last question about grief. I just wanted to mention that individuals and families are not only grieving death in this time, they're also grieving loss of many other things with lots of businesses being closed. Families are grieving that some of them have had family businesses long term and all of a sudden they've had to close. And some of them have had businesses open short term and they've dumped a lot of their resources into opening that business here just within the last few years and having to close. So that's devastating for a lot of people. And just grieving a sense of normalcy is something that other people are grieving. Just being able to get up and go to their daily routine is hindered at this point. Just being able to go to the grocery store, get out your car, and walk in without having a mask on is overwhelming for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said that. And just really real quick for those who are not familiar with it, can you explain what journaling is?
Absolutely. So journaling is simply writing down your thoughts. And journaling, one thing about journaling is people tend to put too many rules on journaling, and it's certainly not necessary. With journaling, there are no rules. You can write about how your day is going. You can write about how you want your day to go. You can do some goal setting in your journal. You can write about your relationships. You can write about your thoughts and feelings. Sometimes a journal entry is one word, like fantastic, or it can be like 10 pages, a whole essay. So it really depends on what's going on in your life. You get to choose what you write about and what's important to you. And like I said, when it comes to gratitude journaling, though, it's more so focusing on positives, even situations and circumstances that might not be favorable or desirable by you that are maybe difficult for you to find anything that's positive or good or healthy in that situation. Gratitude journaling helps you and encourages you to find the positives even in the worst circumstances.
Appreciate that.
Got a quick question I just thought of myself. Well, actually, two questions, and they're kind of unrelated. So I'll start with the first one. Being a mental health professional, do you ever feel external pressure to, I'll use air quotes, to always have it together because of what he might say, she might say? Like, do you ever feel a space where you can actually be human? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question, Terry. That's a really good question. You know, a lot of our limitations and rules are self-set. So sometimes being in a profession such as mine, I think that a lot of therapists actually put that pressure on themselves that they have to be perfect. I don't think it necessarily comes from other people all the time. We tend to believe that we have to always have it together. And personally, I believe that you have to make sure that if you're in the mental health profession, I do well over 100 therapy sessions a month.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, it's really important for me to ensure that I'm engaging in frequent self-care and that I have balance between having time to myself to kind of unwind and rejuvenate and recharge my batteries, and also having time to connect with loved ones. So making sure I have that loved one time, that family time, that support system time, but also making sure that I have that me time, whether it's my laying down and reading a book, whether it's a hot bath, whether it's a walk, whether it's a workout, whatever it is that brings me comfort and joy, and helps me to relax is really important. And also being honest with yourself as a helper, being honest with yourself about your personal emotional experience, because it's very easy to lie to yourself and say, I'm okay when you're not okay. And it's important to remember that it certainly is okay to not be okay, and that we're human. And just because we're therapists, just like I say about pastors, just because someone is a pastor does not mean that they have to have a perfect life. They have to never make flaws. They always have to be in a good mood. Um, hey, ask my family. I'm sometimes in the greatest mood where I am uh, making fun of everyone and just being silly. And then I have my times where I'm like, I'm tired. I'm going to go lay down. So, and it's okay to have either. Just be honest with yourself and communicate what you need in those moments to the people in your support system.
Definitely appreciate that.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, definitely appreciate it. One thing I forgot to do was ask for those. Are you accepting new patients?
I am. Yes, I am.
And
And I have a couple of other therapists in my practice that I'm supervising.
okay.
So even at times whenever I don't, because sometimes I'm booked out for like 4 to 6 weeks,
Oh wow.
and so I have other therapists that I can connect them with in my practice.
Sounds good. Best way to reach you for your practice, website, address, phone number.
Sure, sure. Right now I'm 100% virtual. My phone number is 618-717-2732, or you can go to carmelbrowncounseling.com and you can contact me through my website. And if you contact me through my website, someone from my reception team will call and schedule you for an appointment.
Okay. And about telehealth, I'm glad, I had it on my notes and I forgot to ask you
Hmm.
about that. Can you
Sure.
please explain to the audience the safety and just the ease, I guess, as far as being able to communicate to your patients through telehealth? I know my mom and my sister during the health are there, they do similar therapy
Hmm.
modalities. And
Hmm.
but I think that there might be some hesitation for people to meet with folks online. I guess maybe from fear of being hacked or whatever the case may
Sure.
be and stuff. Can you please speak on that real quick before we go on your book?
Absolutely. Well, like for myself, I do telehealth through therapy sites, and they are HIPAA compliant. My website is also through therapy sites. And so these are companies that only work with mental health professionals, and therefore they are HIPAA compliant. So everything is airtight to where there is no hacking. Everything's safe and confidential. And now, if we were going to do Facebook Messenger, obviously that's not a secure platform to do telehealth. But individuals who are serious about confidentiality and professionalism will ensure that they have a platform for their clients that is strictly confidential and safe. Like for therapy sites, which is what I use, and this is in no way a advertisement for therapy sites, but I use them because they only work with mental health professionals and they're HIPAA compliant. But I can't, if I have two clients from the same household, so say it's a parent and a child, they can't use the same email address because the link that goes from my system to their email box for their appointment, they click on that link to join their appointment. So if let's say there's a mom and a daughter that has a appointment, say the daughter is seeing another therapist that's in another state even, they can't even use the same email address cannot be in that system at all for two different people. So it doesn't matter if daughter's living in Wyoming with dad and mom is living here in Illinois alone, they can't have the same email address because they don't want someone else being able to go into their email and log into someone else's session. So it's very secure.
And for those who may be, and I don't know how this works for you guys, but are you able to take people across state lines? So, like, if you have somebody in Florida or somebody in Georgia, can they reach out and have therapy services by you, or does it have to be in the state where they reside?
Everyone needs to have someone in the state where they reside because
Okay.
everyone is licensed in specific states. Now, you can seek services for someone in another state, but it wouldn't necessarily be covered by your insurance, and it would be more so coaching more than therapy.
Okay.
So I've worked with individuals in different states before, but not necessarily on a therapy level. So you are supposed to only practice in the state in which you're licensed.
Okay, I was just kind of curious about that. And one more question is about social media. You know, we're talking about coping skills and whatnot. Myself personally, I limit myself, my phone, I use my phone to help limit how long I'm on social media every day. And it's
Hmm.
like probably no more than an hour. I find myself more productive this way and spending more
Hmm.
time for myself and putting my phone down more. I know it's not doesn't work for everybody. I do remember reading in a site, because I do read a lot of articles on mental health for my own state of mind as well.
Hmm.
They do recommend getting off social media for a while. I mean, maybe not for a prolonged period of time. What are your thoughts
Hmm.
about just the use of social media during the pandemic? And like Butler said, you know, every time you log in, you're pretty much almost guaranteed that you're going to say thoughts and prayers. Somebody's, you know, one of your friends are saying that they got COVID, or see
Hmm.
somebody, you know, they're putting the pictures up with intubated or receiving oxygen. So what are your thoughts on that real quick?
Yes, there's a lot of research out there now about social media and mental health. And it is pretty much a proven fact at this point that social media or extended use of screen time can promote or perpetuate anxiety and depression. So it can certainly worsen symptoms if you've already had them as well. So it's certainly encouraged to reduce your screen time, especially where social media is concerned. Now, it's different for everybody because a child already dealing with self-esteem issues in the midst of a pandemic and not being connected to their peers or being able to engage in their usual activities such as sports, band, and so on and so forth, as I mentioned earlier. And then they're on social media habitually watching uh, people grieving, death, uh, stories about fear and what might happen. That is certainly going to be a recipe for disaster and probably deterioration in their mental health. So it's different for everyone. And if maybe you weren't experiencing any type of mental health issues or self esteem issues, and you're on social media maybe more than someone who has those issues, if you notice any changes in the way you feel, if you notice that you're feeling a little more anxious or nervous, or you're a little less comfortable than usual, or you find that you're engaging in more negative or fearful thinking, then that is certainly a sign that maybe there's been some triggers and you need to reduce your screen time. So it's different for everyone. It's a proven fact that social media and excessive amounts of screen time are not good for mental health. And depending on the circumstances, it can be worse for some than others.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to make sure we touched on that. And now we're actually going to talk about your book, Your
Sure.
Exhilarating Life. I got
Yeah.
myself a copy the day that she
Mm.
had put an announcement. So I support as many Black businesses as possible.
Sure.
You know, because like I said, digital Black Wall Street. So
Hmm.
got the book. It's on Amazon. I forgot how much I
Hmm.
paid for it. But I did take a glance at some sections, and you know, she got some really nice nuggets in there. Some of the chapters that it covers is family, or some of the major parts covers family and interpersonal relationships and getting down
Hmm.
to business. So she actually has sub chapters or breakdowns on dealing with people pleasing, fear,
Hmm.
failure, and rejection are cousins. Oh, I got to read that chapter. And, you know, protecting your brand as well as quitting is not an option. So, uh, thank you for contributing your thoughts and knowledge, not only as a professional, but also doing it on a paperback form, such as a book or ebook. So, what led you to write the book?
Well, so this book, actually, I started writing this book a couple of years ago, and it's just kind of been sitting for a couple of years, and
I can relate.
just over the yeah,
I can relate.
yeah, because if you're a writer, you write just because you like to write. You don't always have the intention of publishing. And I have plenty of things that I have written over the years that I haven't published or even thought about publishing. But, as time has gone on and we've come up on this past year, I've realized that the information in this book is very relevant to today's time. And it's information that people really need to help get through today's times. Like, for example, mental health is at a heightened state right now. We're seeing more people coming in for treatment, and we're seeing people reporting worsened symptoms, or people who never had symptoms before currently experiencing them. In addition to that, businesses closing, people losing their jobs, people struggling financially in regards to business. This book covers all of those things. And so it is geared to help individuals that may be dealing with even emotional or mental health stuff that may be in business or entrepreneurship. I've seen a lot of disasters over the years, people who are really good at what they do and are experts in their field, but they did not deal with themselves first. And so they're launching businesses, they're trying to help other people when they're not in a good place mentally or emotionally. And so it covers that. The first part of the book covers that because I strongly believe that in order to be a good business owner, in order to be a good husband or wife, to be a good parent, in order to just be good at any role in your life, you have to deal with yourself first. So that means dealing with any self-esteem issues you might have, any untreated symptoms of mental illness that you might have, or maybe it's that you lack the ability to have healthy relationships and figuring out why, seeing a professional to try and understand why that's problematic for you. But the book deals with all those things. It deals with people pleasing. I've seen a lot of people that are in roles of business or entrepreneurship that seek the approval of other people. And when they don't get it, they're crushed. And then I talk about failure quite a bit in this book as well. And, you know, when you look at successful people, most of them have failed more than they've succeeded.
Oh, yeah.
And if you read many of their backstories, you sometimes find yourself asking, how in the world did they try again? Like, why did they keep going? I always use Steve Harvey for an example, and you know his backstory and where he came from and where he is now.
Yeah.
But when it comes to success, you don't just come out the gate succeeding, not making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, and I talk about perfection as well. So that fear and failure and perfection and all those things that cripple people and hinder them from trying initially, or maybe trying again after they've had a failed attempt at something. So I talk about all of those things that kind of get into the emotional state and mental health. And then in the second half of the book, I talk mostly on business principles, business advice. And it's really practical, very basic stuff that's very helpful for individuals who might be new business owners, or maybe they're thinking about it. I talk about things such as making sure that you understand the difference between a hustle and a legitimate business, because there's a lot of hustles out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a hustle, but just know when you have that versus an actual business. And I go into some of the signs that you may actually just have a hustle. This may not actually be a legitimate business, and what to do about that. Some of the things that are my favorites in this book are the parts where I talk about making sure that what you do in regards to your work is connected to your life's purpose. Making sure that you identify your gift, the thing that it's what you do naturally without thinking about it, with very little effort, and you find yourself doing it all the time, even without trying. I talk about that in here and how to figure out what that is, and making sure that that's connected to your purpose, like what you were born to do. And I also mentioned talents. Those are your skills and your abilities, that you have things that you're good at that accentuate that gift. And using all those things, your purpose and your gift and your talent, to pursue the career or the business that is meant for you, so that it doesn't feel like work, so that it doesn't feel like something that you have to dread doing every day. Now, another thing about that is you'll have passion. You'll have passion for what you do every day when it's connected to your life's purpose and your gift. Because here's the thing, when you're opening a business, you're going to have some roller coaster moments. There's ups and downs. It's not all good and glory. Some people will have you to think that starting a business or running a business is easy. They don't tell you the whole story. In this book, I tell you about some of my challenges and some of my failures, financial and everything, because you invest so much in your business. How to bounce back from those things. First of all, how to endure. So I talk about some things that you have to sacrifice during the process of business ownership, some things that I had to sacrifice, my husband and I, and then also how to maintain endurance while you're sacrificing. And then once you come through all of that and you've achieved a level of stability, desired stability with your business, how to make sure that everything is still intact that needs to be intact, how to engage in self-care after that, and so on and so forth.
I highlighted two parts in your book. Just would like to get your input on that. You have on page 30 something that stood, I guess, an adage or a saying I think was pretty good. No matter how great you are, there will always be someone greater, better, more attractive, more qualified, smarter, or more successful. So why waste your time worrying about that? I find that really interesting and stuff because I myself, for the longest, I was concerned about what other people thought. I think all
Did
of
she
us,
drop out too?
she did drop out. That
She
is,
might have a technical difficulty.
that might be that charter bug. I don't know what happened. So, anyways, I'll talk about the book. But she did have this one point. I'll wait for her to get back on. But yeah, so the saying about no matter how great you are, there will always be someone greater, better, more attractive, more qualified, smarter, or more successful. So why waste your time worrying about that? I think that's kind of dope because, I see, everybody's a Robin Hood investing champion right now. So and people are, I guess they're quote unquote making their bag or whatever and stuff. I think that we should just be satisfied about whatever we're doing, whatever we set our mind to. I think that's phenomenal because, we have the ability to do so many different things, but we also have to understand too that for everything that we do, there's probably about thousands and thousands of people doing it way much better. And so, it's almost like who you're trying to impress. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, that's true, man. Especially with social media, I think people, they see these different images of people, and then they assume that everybody has it all together, and then they look at that image, try to judge themselves, and may either feel a way about it or talk behind their back or whatever. And so it's definitely important to, one of the things I always tell people, just know thyself and always stay in your own lane. Like, your potential and what you're capable of should be the only competition you ever look at.
Yeah.
So when you look in that mirror, there's no other competition besides what you're actually capable of. It's like you should exhaust yourself to find out why you're here, what your purpose is, and just whatever it is, do that to the best of your ability. Once you add all these external factors in trying to be something you're not, that's when you end up in trouble.
Absolutely. Carmel, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
No, it's all
Queen is
good.
back.
Yeah, we was talking about your quote on page 30 about no matter how great you are. What led you to write that particular piece right there about why I'm worrying about that?
Because, I've worked with and I work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, even in therapy. And a lot of them really struggle with that. They question themselves and they second guess their quality and their worth of their work and just of themselves in general. And it's sometimes debilitating for many of them. Somebody else is doing it better, or maybe, they look at other people and size themselves up.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're always going to find someone that maybe you don't measure up to or you don't think you do. But that's really irrelevant to what you're doing. There's always going to be someone that is, let's just say, okay, I'm a writer, obviously. I'm a published author. I have 2 published books. My books are great. I love my books. But there's going to be somebody that's going to read my book and not really get much from it. Like, okay. And then there's some people that's going to read it and say, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be other people, there'll be people that read other people's books and think that somebody else's book is better than mine. and there will be someone who thinks mine is better. None of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is that you are intentional and you are secure in who you are, the message or the product that you have created and that you're delivering to your audience, and standing on that and being able to celebrate other people, whether you think you measure up to them or not. And if it's somebody you think you don't measure up to, figure out how you can rub elbows with them and get better. And don't be discouraged by it, be inspired by it.
Yeah, I think that's really dope that you said that because, it almost kind of talking to me. For the longest, I had a hard time really separating, the talents that I was able to have and even actually minimizing what I had because I used other people as benchmarks. And I think it's healthy to benchmark your performance against other people, but it's unhealthy to get to the point where you're envious, in some
Mm-hmm.
regards. And I don't know, maybe if I was envious or not. I don't think I'm a jealous person, but it was just really hard for me to kind of get over some of my mental blocks. And it actually took for my father to pass for me to actually really accelerate and really tap into the potential that I had. But even then, I still struggled at times, going on social media. I used to get influenced sometimes, and, what I saw on social media or maybe what somebody was telling me, I mean, I would genuinely be happy for them,
Mm-hmm.
really would be genuinely be happy. But then I would sit here thinking like, well, why am I stuck? And then I realized this just was not a healthy way of thinking. So I thought that was really cool that you put that in the book. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
one
Thank
last
you.
section. I'm sorry, he's going to say something else. I'm sorry.
No, I just said thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. One last section I want to talk about. Actually, we'll start off with Butler. We want to get your feedback on this statement. It's on page 77. And Ms. Brown stated that sometimes releasing toxic and unhealthy people in order to maintain peace in your business and in your life is worth more than any amount of money.
Mm.
Is worth more than any amount of what?
It's worth more than any amount of money. So I'll read it again. Sometimes releasing toxic and unhealthy people in order to maintain peace in your business and in your life is worth more than any amount of money. Now my voice is pretty light, so I don't have that Morgan Freeman voice, so I can't read it like, like you can or something like that.
Yeah, that's an awesome line. I
Yeah.
mean, the people you have around you and that energy that you allow in your spaces is crucial because you can have all the potential in the world, all the talent in the world, but if you surround yourself with people who have a jealous nature, who are inherently lazy, who have low self-esteem, you're never going to get past that unless you have a whole other circle that's feeding you. Because what's going to happen is that I think that circle, that those energy drainers, they're going to suck all of your energy out. If you don't have, because you're just constantly pouring into them at that point, you have to be in a circle that's feeding you, that's building you up. So yeah, that's an awesome observation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100% agree.
absolutely.
yeah, I think it's really dope too and stuff because just chiming in on that, Butler. There's for the longest I would sit there and again, for self-esteem or mental health issue, whatever you want to call it, I would sit there and think like, man, when I was making X amount of dollars and I was doing this and that, I had 50, 60 people at the house, big old house party doing this and that. And it seems like the more I continue to ascend, the less people is hanging around and even some, underlying animosity, jealousy, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I don't care. But um, I thought it was just really interesting, that I found myself saying that I need to align myself with people who have value. And it doesn't have to mean that somebody is smarter than me. It doesn't have to mean that somebody is more financially successful than me or whatever and stuff, but what are value adds? I mean, I kind of, again, I think more of a business person more and more every day and stuff. So, like Butler, I met Butler through my cousin, several
Mm.
years ago. And we did a couple of projects together and now we're doing this there, and,
Sure.
Butler has value, like you have value. We talk offline several times and
Yep.
just, that's basically what I'm doing. I'm trying to remove, toxic relationships. And that doesn't mean that I'm done with people. I don't really quit people. I don't carry grudges or anything like that. But,
Hmm.
if we have a serious disagreement or whatever the case may be, you can continue to hold the line or whatever you hold. I'm going to keep it moving because I just can't go back and just keep dragging back what happened months or years ago and stuff, and use it as an area of contention against myself. So, but I realized a lot of other people did. And so those people I had to push to the side. I'm not gonna say let go, but it just wasn't value added. It's not like I need yes people, you know what I mean? I like people to challenge me from time to time, but by the end of the day, it's about value. And so that's where I emphasize for myself personally more today than I have, probably ever did at any point in my life. So I think that was a dope comment too. So what led you to write that particular piece?
Well, for the very reasons that you guys just described, but I also want to add that that also comes down to clients that you serve, because sometimes they can be toxic, and sometimes you have to let go of them or fire them as a client. Even though they may be a paying client, there are times when you have to decide that your mental health and emotional well-being is more important than dealing with this toxic person with unreasonable expectations, and maybe that's demanding of you in ways that they shouldn't be, and it's taking a toll on your well-being. So sometimes you just have to let people go.
So, quick question to you. So, and you don't have to get specific. Have you ever had to, I would say, fire a client because you felt that they were too toxic?
So not in therapy. Well, yes, I have. I just remember. Yes, I have. I have had a client, and I didn't really deliver it that way. But basically, I've had to tell a person or two that I think someone else would be able to better serve them, because I want to make sure that I'm able to have a healthy therapeutic relationship with individuals if I'm going to work with them. It doesn't matter how much money you're getting paid if it's ongoing struggle and battle, and especially when they may be able to find peace somewhere else, or you may be able to find peace if they are with someone else. And then now with my fitness center, I have had to like there was a time when I had someone and I talk about it in this book. I had somebody in a 1-year contract, and the person decided they didn't want to be in their contract anymore, and which has hardly ever happened. But I've had, I can count on one hand how many times that's happened in 6 years. But one person decided, and it was all because there was a time when this individual was requesting something of me at a very inappropriate time when I was working with someone else, and they didn't want to. They wanted me to respond to them or to whatever their request was in that moment, and I simply didn't think it was fair to the person I was working with. And so I did. I basically told the person I would be with them shortly once I finished with the other person, and they didn't like that very. And so after that, their attitude changed. They became very toxic. The energy that they brought into the building when they came in was not healthy for me or for other people. And I noticed an immediate change from that day forward. And so then at some point they decided they wanted to get out of their contract. And I was very willing, very much willing to allow them to terminate their contract because it wasn't about the money. I didn't care about how many months was left on the contract. I was actually relieved that they went away because obviously they weren't happy. I want people that are coming to me for services, if they're coming to me for therapy, coaching, business mentoring, whatever they're coming to me for, I want them to want to be there. And I want them to enjoy the time that we spend together while I'm rendering services. I don't want it to be negativity and tension. Because it's counterproductive.
Absolutely. Page 44 and 45, the last one, because she has 130 pages worth of nuggets and wisdom. Like I said, when I bought the book, I actually took a quick glance and looked at some pages here and there. So I kind of bookmarked some things just to ask her about, but she got definitely got some good nuggets in there. We'll do two at one time. Get involved with people for the right reasons rather than who they appear to be or appear to have. Don't judge a book by its cover. And this one seems a little bit related. Base your personal and business relationships. I like this one. Base your personal and business relationships first on internal qualities, followed by external ones. Butler?
Sure.
Repeat that.
The last one, base your personal and business relationships first on internal qualities, followed by external ones.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
I think what people have inside them internally, and it might take you a while to discover what someone else has on the inside of the inside of them internally, but definitely you want qualities like integrity. You want qualities like loyalty, and you just want to make sure that you surround yourself with people. Again, especially, I guess, business or personally, it does. I guess it's all the same in the same family, pretty much. Because I don't really want to be in business with anyone I would want to be in a personal relationship with. You know what I mean? Like, because I think people feel better being in business with people that they have the same kind of mindset, same kind of energy, and that kind of thing. So if I'm in business with somebody, we can go somewhere, we can go hang out, dinner, drinks, whatever. Energy has to be the same. I can't be like, oh, you kind of a sleazeball, but I'm gonna do business with you anyway, just for the money. Because I always think that's gonna sour. That that negative is gonna come out. If not in the beginning, it's gonna eventually come out. So if you ever feel that energy shift, you probably want to sever the relationship anyway, because they're gonna turn around and probably bite you in the butt. So the same kind of energy, it kind of synchronizes to a personal relationship also. I think that's definitely true.
Yeah.
External, I mean, that's always going to be what it is. But once you find somebody that you can like internally vibe with, you see what kind of person they are, then that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, I like to add consistency too, but it's based on those intrinsic qualities that you're talking about, because I think that consistent, I mean, so people are going to have their bad days, and for me personally, if it kind of makes me think of some conversations with some people, whether it be recently or back in the day, I evaluate you by the whole body of work. By the end of the day, you have to do something very, very egregious, something really so foul that you can't walk back from for me to walk away. Because if you're consistent, I'm with you because you're consistency as far as like I'm in a relationship. Everybody I have some kind of interaction with, I consider a relationship. So if you're consistent and I know exactly how you are in most situations, I can deal with that. But people are not, we're not robots. So if you have a bad day, chalk it up for having a bad day and call it a day. And that's where I kind of go back to saying, like, if you're holding all these issues that you had or concerns that you had from 18 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or whatever the case may be and stuff, then that's something else that's deeper than than the actual relationship itself. And so for me, like I said, I can disagree with you to the day is long, but by the end of the day, it just comes down to consistency. Are you a consistent person? Are you consistent with your mannerisms? And again, it doesn't have nothing to do about what you're doing, your lifestyle, or whatever the case may be and stuff. But if I know that you're moving in that same highway, I can deal with you. So I just think that statement right there really kind of resonated with me and stuff, because it is about the internal qualities first. I mean, I think really makes a big difference. So what was you thinking when you wrote that particular piece, Carmel?
Well, I think that my thought process with that was that individuals very often seek out people whom they believe can provide something for them. Not all people, but some people do, and especially in business. Now, we do this in our personal relationships too, because I use the example of marrying for money in here. It's the exact same thing. You're marrying for money, or you're connecting with someone in a business partnership or relationship because you believe they can help you achieve something that you didn't have before you entered that relationship. And so once you have acquired whatever that thing is, whether it's money in the marriage, or whether it's a new title or a new network in business, once you've achieved that, where's the substance of that relationship? Where is the quality? Where's the fun? Where's the integrity of that relationship after that? Where do you go from there? And so then, it comes down to disappointment, because you'll be looking for other qualities that may or may not be there. And more than likely, you're going to be disappointed. And then you face the risk of maybe ruining the relationship or the relationship ending because there's nothing else there. There's no foundation.
Yeah, I think that's really dope. I mean, all bridges can be destroyed, but all bridges can also be rebuilt. But it has to, take effort from both sides to invest into rebuilding those bridges. Something I believed in a long time ago. It makes me think about somebody I grew up with, friend of mine. I don't know if I want to consider him a friend, but he did some crazy things and stuff. But by the end of the day, despite all that, if he ever picked up the phone, to me, it's just my consistent behavior. I mean, I
Hmm.
deal with you a different way, but I still, it's just it's hard to move around with anger and hatred in your heart. I mean, I've done that for so long, and it's counterproductive, and it actually takes off years off your life. So, I think that also you bringing up the point about relationships, I think that's interesting too, because you have a lot of young ladies and you have a lot of young men who are shacking up for folks for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
I mean, outside of intimate, but they're shacking up, because of they think that they can get something out of that particular situation or relationship, so you hear it some, and I know hip hop is what it is and stuff, but you talk about WAP and songs like that. I mean, they're cool, but in actuality of the rappers, they're singing those songs, they're not living that life, first of all. But the thing is that those people feel like that they have to rock a certain style or portray themselves or their body in a particular way, male and female, to be able to be accepted. And I just think that's so unhealthy, because it just starts off like an avalanche of just bad stuff that could potentially happen in a relationship, and it could be very psychologically scarring. That's my personal opinion. So I think
Sure.
that was really effective of you to say that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I know I wanted to mention, and this is on page 98 and 99. I mentioned um, social media. We mentioned social media earlier when we were talking about mental health.
Yeah.
I just want to make mention of the fact that social media can be detrimental for business as well. A lot of the young business owners or entrepreneurs that I've mentored and coached, I'm always on them about what they post on their social media pages.
Oh yeah.
And it goes back to what Terry, you asked me earlier about, do you always feel the need to be okay or to be in a good place? The answer to that obviously is no, but there are some things that we just shouldn't present in public, and
Oh yeah.
for very obvious reasons. I know we're living in the age or era of keeping it 100, but when you are building a business and even a family, you have to be very careful about what you're presenting publicly because you represent your family and your business. You are your brand. And so when I see people with excessive amounts of, profanity and what they're drinking and smoking on the weekends and things like that, that's detrimental. And not even if you're a business owner, even if you're someone who's seeking a professional career with a company, they're going to look at your social media pages, and if you appear to be someone who's out of control or who lacks morals and values and so on and so forth, due to your habits that you're presenting publicly.
Oh, happened to lose her again. Actually, I saw
Yeah.
it happen. Yeah, she was messing with something in her
Spec-
hand.
Spectrum bug got her again.
Yeah, she actually has this cool little thing where I guess she should push it to kind of talk or get off or whatever. And I saw her fumbling with it and she dropped it. I know she's going to hop on real quick, but now I guess just to chime in on what she was saying until she hops back, I think that's really interesting too, because I tell people all the time, when I used to do what I did in the industry, um, we used to go through your social media pages. So, and you don't think you can be found, they can find you.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So I mean, if they can do, if you got WhatsApp or Snapchat, you don't think the government can't pull your stuff, or they can. So, I'm always kind of mindful of, especially more nowadays, with everybody trying to hack and whatnot and stuff. Be mindful of what I share to folks, and also, watch what I do on my behavior, because actually some of the opportunities that I have received over the last 6 months have came from my social media activity and profile. So The stuff that I do have out there on LinkedIn, if you Google my name, you'll see all the videos and conversations and comments or whatever the case may be. You know, it's not negative. And even some of the stuff that I feel very strongly about, I try not to comment publicly and stuff, because let's say that I run for office. I'm not going to run for office, but let's just say I run for office. Somebody could take a video. You saw what happened with President Obama. You know, they took a church sermon clip and they try to use that against them. And so you just never know, you know, what all can, you know, backfire on you just by putting your stuff out there, you know, out there in the open. What you think, fam?
Right, yeah, because I think all the time in the sports world, like anytime an athlete, they become like a prominent, somebody's going to research their social media for years back. They're going back to 2014, 2013. It was like, oh, look what you said 2013. That's how they did Kevin Hart. I think they did a couple other people. Right. Yeah. Look at what you said way back here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still feel that way? Now you can't evolve from that person. They're going to attach you to your mindset 6 years ago when you may have evolved and become a completely different animal. Now you got to go back and explain your mindset, and some people don't even want to hear your apologies or whatever you're trying to say at this point. So, yeah, if you ever run for office, just start a clean slate, delete all your social media, and start off fresh.
Yeah, you ain't lying. But you know, it's funny that you say that though, because you know, people want to pick. They want to put you in this box, and they want to remember again why. And it's not like it's a personal. I keep bringing it up and stuff, but these are the common conversations I hear. People hinge on, for myself personally, stuff that I've done years ago. I change like seasons. You know, I try to be consistent in my behavior for the most part, but my mind pings around the place and stuff. I mean, the stuff I'm doing right now, hell, I never thought I was going to do a podcast. You know, more, you know, and when I brought it up with you, you know, a while back, I didn't. You know, here we are going to the 12th episode. You know, we're going to do it again definitely for all 21. You know, in spurts and whatnot stuff. But you know,
and somebody might look at you and be like, "Who do you think you are on the podcast now? Who do you think you are?"
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You might get that. I'm a different cat now. I've got a hold of different information. And being able to adapt and evolve is our secret, I guess, survival technique. Like you have to be able to adapt and evolve. You shouldn't be the same person you were a couple of months ago. Because you're learning more, you're growing more. Your opinion should change. You might have been 10 toes down on something a month ago. You got new information, new perspective. Now, okay, I'm more enlightened. I have a different stance now that I see there are my ways, or I've been given new information on this thing. So, it's a trip.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you can go back and say, well, hell, I was like probably a heartbeat away of getting sent to jail. So when I was 19 years old, and I did a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And the stuff I did at 35 was probably just as crazy as 19 and 20. But the person I'm at today, at this age, is different, you know, and evolve. And there's nothing wrong with evolving your position. There's nothing wrong evolving your interests, who you like, what you want to tolerate with, what you don't want to tolerate. You know what I mean? Because you got to do something that's best for yourself. So, Carmel, good to have you back on. Just wanted you to finish those thoughts before we hit the close.
Yeah. And thank you guys for picking up on that. You certainly covered it. And that's exactly where I was going with that. You know, it can be detrimental and people do hold it against you. It doesn't matter how much your views have changed, how much you've grown. When you're building something, you simply can't afford it. There are entities and individuals who have built their empire or their enterprise, and they can afford to be reckless on social media. But when you're building something, you certainly cannot afford that. And the other thing that I was going to say that's kind of consistent with that is you cannot connect with everyone in business because everybody's personality and reputation is different. You can't work hard to protect your brand, to protect your reputation, and then get connected in a business partnership with someone who hasn't done the same. It's the same as getting involved with someone in an intimate relationship, a romantic relationship. It's no different. That you've worked really hard to have integrity and life of quality, and you've taken care of yourself. you've been financially responsible, it doesn't make sense to get involved romantically with someone who hasn't done those things, who's been reckless in those areas.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, definitely, I'm gonna definitely be checking it out. I know I have some downtime during Thanksgiving, so I definitely will be reading, so I can post my review on Amazon. Because I don't want to just buy the book just to buy it. I actually want to read it. So again, it's called Your Exhilarating Life: Creating Family and Career Prosperity by Miss Carmel Brown. It is available on Amazon. And if you want to speak to Miss Brown for therapy services, she is booked up right now, but she does have other counselors that she's working with within her practice. And her phone number is 618-717-2732. And her website is www.carmelbrowncounseling.com, all one word. And you can set up an appointment and definitely try to get your mental health together. It's very important in the Black community. It's actually something we'll continue to talk about, over and over again. And I would love to get the other panelists on there at different points throughout 21 to speak on it, because Black mental health is a priority, as well as our Black health. Because if we don't take care of our mental health, it affects our physical health, and if it affects our physical health, it affects our ability to build generational wealth. So it's definitely something that we need to have a more open and honest discussion amongst ourselves. And Carmel, we definitely appreciate you sharing your time with us. Butler, do you have any concluding thoughts?
I do. Carmel, I'd actually like you, because we never had a chance to speak on the nutritionist side of your business. So just like really quick, I'm kind of pressed for time.
Yeah,
Can you kind of put the correlation between like foods we should be putting our body that will actually kind of boost our mood, mental health?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I'm cutting out, Terry, or if that's you. Can you guys hear me okay? Somebody's cutting.
That might be me. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Okay, I can now.
Okay.
Okay. So to answer your question, yes. Speaking of which, thank you for bringing that up, Terry. So I also have a book called Nurture Your Body. The subtitle was Overcoming and Preventing Obesity. I am a certified fitness and nutrition specialist as well. And nutrition has everything to do with our mental health and our physical health. There is a thing called nutritional psychology that's become really big. And there are entities and organizations, treatment centers that treat individuals with mental illnesses strictly off of nutritional or dietary changes and micronutrients. So what that means is they don't give them any psychotropic medication, or they give them minimal psychotropics. Most of their treatment consists of therapy, supplements and vitamins, and nutritional or dietary changes. There's a lot of research out there. You guys know I've done a lot of research. That's something that I'm really huge on. There are foods that you can eat that will worsen symptoms of mental illness, and there's foods that you can eat that can help manage or reduce the symptoms of mental illness. And there have been some cases in which individuals were treated with dietary changes and supplements, and their symptoms went away altogether, which makes one question, did they ever have the disorder in the first place? Because here's the thing, a lot of what we put in our body has a lot to do with the information that many of us have that builds up in our bodies. So everybody knows that poor nutrition can cause inflammation in the body. The brain is part of the body. And so the brain can also become inflamed as just as the rest of the body can, by eating a lot of processed foods, lots of sugar, too much caffeine, and lots of or excessive amounts of dairy and meat as well, refined carbs and things like that. So I strongly recommend eating things like fish and healthy fats like avocados and nuts, legumes, and olive oils and things like that. So those things are great for brain health. And foods like oatmeal, that's good for calming. Those whole grains, they're good for people who have anxiety. But things like caffeine and sugar and chocolate and things like that are poor for people who have anxiety. And then there are also foods that are a little more stimulating, that help out with people who may have depression. And like I said, the fish and all that's also good for that. But fruits are really good for individuals with anxiety. Green leafy vegetables are good for depression and anxiety. So if you want more information about that, I could go on and on for another hour just on nutrition alone. And not to mention, when we are not mentally and physically healthy, meaning we're not exercising, we're not putting the right foods in our bodies, we're putting all the wrong stuff in our bodies, we're not going to be able to perform optimally in our careers and businesses. We're not going to have the energy to engage with our families the way we need to. So nutrition is of the utmost importance of just having a successful and prosperous life altogether.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, we might have to have another show just on nutrition alone. Absolutely.
man, you beat me to the punch.
Yep. I'm up for it. Let me know.
Oh yeah, well, we'll definitely have you on and stuff. I mean, because you just what they say on the regular programs, are you're a friend of the show. You're officially a friend.
Absolutely.
So definitely appreciate it. So that actually concludes our episode 12 with Ms. Carmel Brown. Once again, she's a licensed clinical counselor as well as a certified nutritionist and a trainer. Her and her husband have a gym. Unfortunately, right now it's on hold because of COVID, but I'm pretty sure hopefully within the next 4 to 6 weeks, we can get things back up and running again. The title of her book is Your Exhilarating Life, Creating Family and Career Prosperity. It's on Amazon. And her other book is Nurture Your Body. You're lucky I got LASIK because
yes. And they're also both on barnesandnoble.com as well.
Oh, barnesandnobles.com as well. So yeah, definitely check her out, y'all. Get your mental health in order. I mean, it's definitely well needed. And some of the nutritional ideas, like I said, fish and staying away from processed foods. I mean, I know they're encouraging people, it's actually kind of funny, just to add this, they're encouraging people to eat out so much and stuff, but really eating out is not healthy for your body. So to me, it's yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's just kind of like one ear and out the other. So I don't eat out that much anymore since I got off the road. But thank you again for listening to the podcast, everybody. Once again, Dr. Terrence Duncan and Terrence Butler, we're on the podcast, Mahogany Thoughts. You can find us on Spotify and YouTube under Dr. Terrence Duncan. And the podcast is on www.drtduncan.com/podcast. Once again, Carmel, thank you very much for joining us, a friend of the show. We'll definitely have you on about nutrition. And that's all for today. Thank you. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I know it's going to be
happy Thanksgiving,
folks and stuff, but hang in there.
Y'all eat up the best way y'all can. I'm sure we'll see those plates posted on Thanksgiving, even though y'all might not congregate the same way. Well, some people will. Some people gonna do it anyway. But I'm sure it's given regardless. But be blessed, be safe. God bless.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
And make sure you make a phone call or just, even if you can't see them in person, just send a text or whatever and stuff. If they don't respond, it's okay. But at least you let them know that you're thinking about them. So God bless everybody and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.